Hello and welcome, apprentices. I am the Wizard of Winterhold, a laughing tombstone. Welcome to the third and final part of this series. As you may have noticed, the microphone I usually use broke on me, so I'll be speaking through cotton for this video. It's either this or the video is delayed for another month. If this is the first video you found, then here's a card to part 1. I'm leaving a link to the series playlist and the wiki I've been using for a source in the description below. The rules are the same for this video as they have been since the beginning. No followers, no mods, and I'm on Legendary. I am also assuming you've seen the other 2 videos I've put out. Now, let's get into how I got a set of mixed armor to work. I actually have a couple of ways to make this work. The first one is what I did with Sir Smash. This is the safer and easier method, and it comes with a few serious drawbacks that I'll point out. What we do is start by either using a full suit of heavy or light armor. I'm using heavy armor because Sir Smash is a heavy tank. You do whatever your build calls for. All we're trying to do is grow our armor enough that we're comfortable with that number going down. A lot. I waited until I had 400 points of defense in a full suit of upgraded wolf armor. That's pretty solid. When I put on Saber's hide, it brought me down to 247. Using Stoneflesh got me back up to 333 armor rating for some reason. I should only have 307 points in my armor rating because Stoneflesh should only give me 60. I just got an 86 point increase in my armor rating for some reason. I'm not sure if this is a bug or if the game just saw what I did and decided to have pity on me. No matter what, this is how I'm going into Valthum. Here there are 3 Draugr Deathlords and a Dragon Priest for me to take on. The Dragon Priest happens to have the final part of Sir Smash's armor, so we're doing this. Honestly, this wasn't too bad. I have enough armor on that I can survive, and only needed Berserker Rage to handle the Deathlords. The boss is a mage, and my magic defenses are spectacular with Sir Smash. That worked. Sort of. Remember how I said there are some serious drawbacks to this particular approach? One of those drawbacks is the fact that I'm over level 30. I am wearing mixed armor successfully, but this approach isn't what you're here to see. Mostly, I'm just using my crafting skills to fill in for the missing piece of armor and then letting my light armor skill grow. With that most obvious of solutions out of the way, let's get into the meat and potatoes that I delayed putting this video out for. I already raised Sir Smash, so I'll need another character to do this with. Let's go ahead and make a red guard and call him Weapon Master Jim. I'm still on Legendary, and I'm still refusing both mods and followers. Unlike Sir Smash, Weapon Master Jim here only uses enchanting to refill enchanted items and only smiths to build a house. I won't be making or enchanting my own equipment, but I will be using whatever I happen to find or buy unless it amplifies my alchemy, at which point I won't be using it. So, no mods, I'm on Legendary, and I'm in a set of mixed armor. Let's talk about how to get the armor working well enough to mean something. Start by getting any set of mixed armor. I picked some armor off this bandit since I went with the Imperial side during Helgen. With some mixed armor ready, we can start growing it. However, we can't grow this with combat. Mixed armor at low levels just doesn't work on its own. So we're going to need something to help us out. A lot. We're going to need flesh spells to supplement our armor, and we'll either need a follower or some Atronachs. I went to Winterhold, joined the college, and fished a Frost Atronach staff out of the Atronach Forge. Once I have my magical stick, it's off to go get the Lordstone. For a set of mixed armor, the 50 points of armor rating is invaluable. Between the Lordstone and Oak Flesh, I'm getting a solid 90 points of armor during combat in addition to my armor. This setup provides about 80 points worth of armor rating. From here, we encounter a problem. We can't actually use the armor we have. Even with everything we just did, the armor we have isn't strong enough to defend us against much more than a wolf. I admit that if you wanted to, you can wander around looking for wolves to go after. I tried to do that and wanted a better way. The problem we're having is that everything does so much damage that it's hard to grow our armor and survive the match. Here's footage of me trying to grow my armor by just using it. As you can tell, I'm taking too much damage for me to really grind like this. So we need a way to grow our armor that isn't using it. I can do that 5 times per level, we just need to know who our trainers are. The first one is the obvious one. Join the companions and ask Farkas to train. Training will be expensive at mid to higher levels, but right now, at the start, this is cheap enough that I'm not going to mourn my money. I didn't become Harbinger if you're curious, so Farkas really did keep all the money I handed over. I never used that bug where followers would train you and then trade you back your money because Farkas never followed me like that. Which is why I'm better with my light armor than I am with my heavy armor. It's possible to reclaim at least a large part of your money if you have the ability to trade with the trainer. What we need to do is go to Riften and talk to Grelka. When she's trained your light armor, we can ask to trade with her, and she'll have all our money and a willingness to trade anything. Which means she's willing to buy our potions, which means we just got all our money back. Now let's talk about that potion, because it's both as awesome and as cheesy a tool as I think I have. I was growing 11 patches of wheat, 11 patches of blisterwort, and 7 patches of glowing mushrooms. That started what I call a smith's surprise. It's a health potion that fortifies health and has a smithing effect. You should have blisterwort and wheat left over for normal healing potions too. I don't really care about the smithing effect for Weapon Master Jim, but it's good to know it's there. That's how much babying mixed armor can need. You not only need to train it up with NPCs, you need to support it further with homemade healing potions. You are locking yourself into the weakest possible armor setup with mixed armor after all. The only thing I haven't addressed about mixed armor yet is the perks, so let's get into that. You need to invest in both Agile Defender and Juggernaut, maybe Fist of Steel if you're using it to take down wolves or something. Now time for the question I'm sure everyone has. Did Weapon Master Jim actually beat the game like that? Yes, actually, I went through the story and, at level 38, fought my way through Skuldolphin. And when it was time to defend the world, here's what it looked like. The axe in my left hand has an absorb stamina effect attached to it, so I can spam power attacks. Most of the damage dragons do comes from their shouts, spewing fireballs and hurling streams of frost. Their bite, while powerful, is still the lesser of two evils. As long as I have a shield to hide behind, I can take a blow even from Alduin directly and not go down instantly. Remember that while I have access to Fortify Smithing, I'm not actually using it. Here's what my armor looked like for the final confrontation with Alduin. As I showed in my last video, a full suit of iron armor could have been better than this. I promised to show off a decent alternative to both magic and elemental resistance. Let's talk about how to reduce all magic damage to 0 with a defense you may have forgotten about. Magic Absorption is the only defense that eats spells. This defense does not work like the others and is rare enough that it's really hard to experiment with. Here's a full explanation. First off, you don't absorb a percentage of magicka. Unlike every other defense in Skyrim, this one either works entirely or not at all. The percentage you're given is a chance to negate hostile spells and absorb any magicka that went into casting them. This can render mages defenseless and remove the threat of enchantments that weapons so often have. This is a good way to get dragons to stop shouting. The dragon in the footage I'm showing you here is trying to shout. It just can't because the 80% magic absorption I have is getting in its way. Be warned, we're in It Just Works territory with magic absorption. I have just as much footage of this with 100% magic absorb and dragons still get their shouts out. This is what makes magic resistance and elemental defense worthwhile even if you have high magic absorption. This either works entirely or not at all. On spells you don't cast, you will never absorb your own spell. Here's some footage I've already used. Sir Smash is sitting at 100% magic absorption, and when I cast Ebony Flesh, I still get the full 100 in my armor rating. Your character won't absorb their own spell, so this is a very safe defense to use. However, there is a major flaw with this defense you should be aware of before trying to rely on it. There are only 2 paths to maxing out this defense, and only one of those that will last indefinitely. DLC is required here. If you don't have Dragonborn, you won't have access to the full magic absorption for very long. Let's start with the Atronach Stone. You get a bit more magicka and a 50% chance to absorb hostile magic spells. This comes with the stark downside of costing you 50% magic regeneration. Bretons can stack this with their natural dragon skin power and absorb 100% of magic for a full minute at any level. So at any level, it's possible to withstand the power of even the greatest wizard if you find this magic rock early. Once we've got our free absorption, we find out that any character that isn't a Breton has a bit of waiting to do. The other paths to magic absorption are late game rewards for doing something or for growing in a certain way. The first one I want to talk about can be acquired by anyone who beats the Dragonborn DLC. You have to beat the final boss of the DLC because we need his robes. After he's had a fun chat with our favorite eyeball monster, we can eat Mirak's souls and take his armor. I'm using the word armor very lightly here. Mirak's gear cannot be upgraded by a workbench, and versions of the unofficial patch supposedly rendered the gloves and boots as clothing instead of armor. My point is, if you're using this stuff, you're probably using it for the enchantment. And when we use all of Mirak's gear, we get up to 75% magic absorption. At this level of magic absorption, we're doing very well, but we can get to 100% for as long as we want. The only caveat is that this is a hard requirement of your build. You must be an Alteration Mage if you want the Atronach perk in the Alteration tree. It's a master level Alteration perk. There is no avoiding some use of the magic for this. Atronach is worth 30% magic absorption, putting us happily at 105%. We can take off either the boots or the gloves and we'll still be at the magic absorption cap for as long as we want. Here's what it lets you do. Just sit in a room full of angry fire mages and watch as they can't do anything but ask you to politely leave. I have several minutes worth of footage of these poor mages shouting at me, and I'm just standing there taunting them with my weird tentacle magic. With that said, let's get a bit deeper into alteration magic. I'm only going to cover the defensive aspects of alteration magic in this video. All of the combined uses of this spell tree would warrant a video all its own. I will ignore otherwise useful spells like Detect Dead and enchantments like Paralysis. I will go over flesh spells, mage armor, and how I was growing alteration magic while remaining a viable warrior. Starting with the family of flesh spells, I intend to cover the 4 major flesh spells, oak, stone, iron, and ebony together. Dragonhide works a little differently than the rest of the spells, so I'll be covering it separately. The first 4 spells have a similar effect. They all raise your armor rating by a fixed amount for 1 minute. They also share the same sound effects and animations. How much armor you receive and how much magicka the spell costs change as you get more and more powerful flesh spells. I want to make this very clear. Flesh spells are not a good substitute for your armor. They're made to be a defense. Not a good defense, just a defense for people who don't run around in armor like most mages. My use here is purely supplemental. If I understand the chart I'm looking at on the wiki correctly, the closer I get to the armor rating cap, the more my armor does until it can do no more. So the extra armor will do more and more as time goes on. I'm also going to reach and then exceed the armor rating cap early because of my choice to mix physical and magical armor. Iron Flesh is worth 80 extra points in armor rating. Remember that after getting and upgrading Savor's Hide and Hebnorak, each piece of my armor gives me about 80 points in armor rating. So casting Iron Flesh is a bit like putting on a 5th piece of armor that will vanish soon. Now, Mage Armor is the only upgrade to flesh spells, and it has a bit of a well-known drawback. You can't wear armor and get benefits from Mage Armor. In other words, Skyrim isn't going to let you wear both armor and get 300 points out of an armor spell. The most you can do is use a shield because that's a kind of quasi-armor that doesn't affect Mage Armor. So the best we're getting out of a flesh spell is 300 points with max Mage Armor. We also have 50 points from the Lord Stone and whatever we can squeeze out of a shield. The shield is a good idea, but it comes with a major drawback. Remember what I said in the last video about how your armor rating cap is determined? Your armor rating cap with the shield and full mage armor benefits is 642. Your shield alone needs to figure out 292 points of armor rating to reach the cap. For a mage, the use of mage armor is a desperate last stand against a boss that got too close. Now, there is one more solution for magic armor, but it isn't good. You can use Dragonhide before you enter battle. Dragonhide puts your defense at something similar to a max armor rating for 30 seconds. How long this spell lasts is easily its biggest problem. You may have noticed that I often have candlelight up during combat. I'm using that spell as a timer for my potions and for my flesh spell. A spell that wears off in half the time of my other spells is flawed on a fundamental level that I just don't know how to fix. My timer will never last as long as the spell I want it to time. Even adopting a perk like Stability or Dual Casting doesn't solve this problem. Stability, Dual Casting, and Potions of Fortify Alteration will all make all alteration spells last longer. The enchantment reduces the cost of alteration magic. That's a decent idea if you're only using alteration magic, but still won't make Dragonhide last as long as Candlelight or a conjuration spell. We can get close, about 66 seconds. That would be good enough if there wasn't a full 3-second wind-up to recast master level spells. You also can't move while casting master level spells like Dragonhide. Putting up a flesh spell and candlelight like that is how I've been growing my alteration magic without seriously investing in magical powers. Flesh spells only seem to grow alteration when you're in combat, so just putting up a token spell like Oak Flesh at the start of combat is enough to slowly but surely grow your alteration skill until it just kind of caps out. Or you can do what I did, which is get close to maxing out your alteration and then finding a large city. For me it was Riften. Then you just cast Detect Life. I seem to get alteration skill for every NPC, so detecting a large crowd like this is a cheap way to reach the skill cap late game. I'm almost, but not quite done. All of my advice thus far has been about your most common forms of damage. There's a defense you need that alteration does not provide for you. Poison damage is an element all its own. There also isn't a whole lot to defend yourself with, so let's just go over everything I know about. There are two races that benefit from poison resistance. If your character is either a Bosmer or a Redguard, then you have a 50% poison resistance at all times. Vampires are also immune to all poison damage by virtue of being undead. Werewolves still take poison damage because they are among the living. There may not be a whole lot of NPCs who use poison damage, but they're going to be the most dangerous unless and until you've done something to defend yourself against poison. Some thieves, assassins, Falmar, their chorus, and frostbite spiders are all that come to mind for me. These will be your most powerful enemy unless you do something to resist poison. We have options. Not a whole lot of options, but enough to keep things interesting. The first one to entertain comes from the alchemy tree. The snake blood perk stacks with other forms of poison resistance and can grant poison immunity to Bosmer and Redguards. Characters like Weapon Master Jim have nothing to fear from poison. If you aren't an alchemist, then we have more options to entertain. Savor's hide in the Dark Brotherhood armor is worth 50% poison resistance, and both will stack with the necklace of resist poison. You don't have to stack resistances. If you're lucky, you may have found a necklace of poison immunity, and if you're in the Dark Brotherhood, you can acquire the Ancient Shrouded set. Both of these items will give 100% poison resistance. Skyrim won't allow total immunity to anything as far as I know, but you are still stopping 85% of incoming poison damage. Remember that every one of these darts I'm letting hit me is inflicting poison damage to me. There is one last option for poison resistance. If you enter Valthoom, you will be met by a ghost afraid of the Dragon Priest Hevnorak returning. The Dragon Priest is looking for his blood in 3 vials in the dungeon. Collecting the 3 vials and returning to the ghost will help release the Dragon Priest. Hevnorak's mask grants 100% defense against poison and disease. This mask can also be upgraded with iron. This armor setup pairs Hevnorak and Savor's hide, giving me 150% poison resistance. I'm not just using Hevnorak for the poison resistance. This mask renders its wearer immune to disease. Please remember, I'm on the 2011 edition of Skyrim. I don't really play with Special Edition and don't know much about the survival difficulty that comes with the 2016 release. With that said, there are no fewer than 8 diseases we can contract. Half of those come from traps and the other half come from some animal or other. The diseases come with a variety of debuffs. The only disease that's really of note is Signatoris Vampiris, which can only be contracted from vampires, and will turn you into a vampire after 3 days if you haven't been treated. No matter the disease, it can easily be cured by interacting with any shrine, using a potion of cure disease, or asking a vigilant to Stendar to cure you. Disease usually isn't much of a problem unless you just let diseases stack up. Either way, let's get into the defenses you have against getting sick. There are 2 necklaces you can use, one of disease resistance and one that says immunity. If that doesn't work, then there's the mask I'm using, Hevnorak, which grants constant disease immunity. And if none of that works for you, you can either become a vampire or a werewolf, neither of which have the power to get sick. Be warned that vampires are only mostly immune to disease. They can still contract illnesses from traps. And that's it. That's all I know about how defense works in Skyrim. You should have all the knowledge you need to leave the shadows forever. If you like the series and want to help support the channel, or you just want to look at my alchemy guide, then please check out the Substack in the About section of the description below. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.